Okay, Mr. Vigneron, thank you very much for doing this interview. As a final part of the advocacy project of ELSA Belgium on contact tracing systems, in which we created specific guidelines and prepared a series of discussions as to how contact tracing systems should be implemented. I'm now thrilled to have this opportunity to speak to you, discussing how this technology of contact tracing apps should be designed, how it should be implemented, which model do you prefer, and what are the current challenges in this area. First, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Tomislav Rachev. I'm a business law student based in Vienna. And I'm also part of an Austrian association that launched contact tracing app in Georgia, which was downloaded and implemented and downloaded by a big chunk of Georgian society. So that's the background of my interest in the topic, in my research interest. I'm very, very pleased to have this opportunity to speak to you. Would you briefly introduce yourselves, your background and what you do?
Okay, so my name is Jeoffrey Vigneron. I'm a Belgian attorney, and most part of the time I work for clients who want law firm to design platform and to work with such kind of question like privacy, platform law, user experience, and those kind of question. So it's a little bit different than traditional law firm. And of course, I feel concerned by all the privacy question because as far as I'm concerned, I think that it will shape how the world will work tomorrow. But maybe I don't have such as an experiment as you. I didn't implement any app or technology related to COVID tracing. So I think we have a lot to discuss together.
For sure, for sure. In my view, you're part of this new wave of lawyers that also has a deep understanding of how technology works. You're in, so to say, in the middle between the area of law and the area of technology, which is also perfect for today's discussion. All right, I'm not going to waste further time. Let's just delve into the questions. When it comes to contact tracing apps and how they function, there are two basic approaches towards the architecture of these apps, rather decentralized and rather centralized approach. Would you say which model you prefer? First, how they are different to each other, and yeah, which one do you find superior?
Okay, first thing first, I would like to summarize the situation for those who are not familiar with the question of COVID tracing. So it's hoped that if we gather a lot of information about the virus, people will get in touch with it. It's possible to prevent the spreading of the contagion if we can isolate the people which are identified like the virus meter. Regarding that way of working, we need we need to collect data, and there is two big ways to collect those data. One is the centralized method, and the other one is the decentralized model. Under the centralized model, anonymous data gather are uploaded on a single server, and the match are made and the process of the data are made on that server who notify people at risk. On the decentralized model, there is a little bit more control of the information in the user hands because the application will process the data on the mobile itself of the person. So the decentralized model is also the model promoted by Google and Apple, who are working together for this occasion. And this is also the model who has been encouraged by a group of expert academics who say that this model should be the one who present less risk related to privacy, among other arguments. From my point of view, I think that the decentralized model offer a little bit more, let's say, trust for the citizen, because there is no big brother state behind the server. But anyway, there is always a risk of leak in any situation. And so it's very hard to say in the future who could be the very best method. But anyway, a lot of countries, most of them in Europe, have chosen the decentralized system.
What is exactly the technical difference between both models? Is it about the storage of data or the way data is transferred? Would you clarify this?
There is the way how data is transferred, because in a decentralized model, we don't need any data related to the person who meet, the person you meet. Those information are kept on your mobile. On the centralized version, we have to send all the details to the central server who process the data. So the amount of data in the centralized model is much more bigger than in the decentralized model. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if technically the analysis of the data is done on the mobile, so the decentralized model is a little bit more preservative of the privacy if you have only the data, but you process it on your phone instead of an external server for everybody else.
And about what kind of data we are talking about, I think it's about the proximity history of the people that are registered in the app. So people download the app and they submit, or let's say they have this signal, Bluetooth signal, that is always on, and it logs all the contact people that were close to this person without storing their identity. So it's all anonymized through anonymous keys. And you're saying that the difference between both models is the place where all of this proximity history of the people that have registered is stored. So on the decentralized, it's stored on the phone, and on the centralized, it's stored in a central server. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. And would you say that there are increased substantial risks when it comes to data privacy when the data is stored on a central server?
Regarding the privacy, it's very hard to compare the different methods. But from my point of view, if any solution related to tracing is a trade-off to privacy. I cannot evaluate which present the bigger risk related to privacy if there is a leak, because I read that for some it's possible to decompile the information on your mobile and to access the whole database of the people only with your mobile. And from this point of view, any hacker can use any mobile to get information about a population of a country. But on the other hand, is also the same problem on a centralized server. If you can access this server, you have everything also, and you have more information that in the decentralized model, because you have also all the connection in between all the people on the centralized model.
So there are risks in both models of architecture.
Of course.
Then how do you explain that the decentralized model has gained so much popularity in Europe, especially, and has gained so much influence on how apps are structured? Because a lot of countries, for example, Great Britain, have switched from a centralized model to a decentralized, actually pretty recently. So how would you explain this shift towards decentralized model?
There is a different reason. From my point of view, the first one is that Google and Apple, who are working together for this occasion, say that they are in favor of a decentralized model. And so it's always easier to work on a model if you are backed by such companies and such technologies as Google and in this situation. Moreover, there was also the privacy expert in European countries who say that the decentralized models present more guarantee for European people. And also there is a question of majority of countries adopting this kind of technology, because we know that it's not easy to make everything work together. And decentralized model and centralized model are not working well together, because the kind of information gathered together are not the same in the different system. So there is most part of a lot of countries who adopt the decentralized model, and so it's more easier to get some interoperability in between those systems if everybody adopt the same technology.
Yes, so we come to the question of interoperability. How do apps interact with each other in different countries? For example, if person A from Belgium travels to Germany, could this person have contact people and proximity history with infected people in Germany, for example?
Yes, theoretically, yes. We are not sure if the tracing will improve the sanitary situation, but we are sure that if there is no interoperability in between all the existing system, the tracing won't work at all. So interoperability, meaning the ability to exchange information from one app to another, is very, very important. For example, for a cross-border worker, for person who have family in Germany but who live in Belgium or in Luxembourg, there is a lot of scenario where it's possible to spread the virus in an area from another, and in between European countries. So it's very important to assure that interoperability in between all the system is done. Regarding these points, and the European country decide with the Commission to create a federation of servers which are working together to share those information, meaning that somebody who is crossing the border doesn't need to install another application, because each country develop its own kind of application. If you are, for example, working in Germany and living in Belgium, you don't need two different kind of application. Theoretically, it's possible to know what's your situation only with your local app, because all those information are gathered in this federation of backend server.
So there is, so to say, cooperation between European countries when it comes to compatibility, interoperability between their national contact tracing apps.
Yes.
Is that a broad coalition or federation? How many countries are within this federation? Is it all of the European countries of the European Union?
I don't know exactly, to be honest. I have the list because the eHealth Federation of Europe produce some guidelines explaining what are the minimal requirements and what are the solutions of the different countries, but I didn't list it to be honest with you.
Yeah, I saw in the list of the European Parliament, there is a published list of all of the national contact tracing apps that were developed in different countries. And there are some countries with centralized models, as, for example, the Czech Republic. Would you say that these centralized models are also compatible with the decentralized of, for example, Germany or Switzerland or France?
Theoretically, they should be. But concretely, I don't know how it works in between the centralized model and the decentralized model. But the information could be used from one system to the other one, because there is a guidelines explaining what is the minimum information that should be produced in one country, like the data and the encryption keys that can be used to give the information to the app of the other country, if needed, of course.
Yeah. All right. Would you? Yeah, I see why it would be complicated when you have a stored data on a central server somewhere in the Czech Republic. How would this server communicate with all the different decentralized contact tracing apps in the different countries, which have the logged data on the devices of people? Do you think that there is a way to synchronize these two systems and to just establish one union of contact tracing, so to say, where all the people that travel cross border have basically have the contact tracing history, and can be sure that when they're diagnosed and they inform the app that they are diagnosed, that all the people that were in contact with them in Europe will be notified that they have to self-isolate? Would you say that's possible in the near future?
Yeah, I think it's possible. That's why all the different applications are using what is called a protocol to organize all the communication in between two different computers is working, and it's the same for the application. There is some kind of rules that the mobile and the server has to fulfill to exchange information. And if it's possible in between a mobile application and a server, it's probably possible in between two different servers in different countries. From my point of view, the question is how to limit to the necessary use the transfer of information in between country, because if you need to transfer each time all the database from one country to another to check if somebody who crossed the border could be or not infected, maybe it could be more effective to create a huge server for all Europe with all the database of every country. But for the privacy point of view, the question is more harder to define. Because how can we protect in such a scale the privacy of people if it's all the information, all the medical information of all the European people in each country, which are stored together in one big database?
Would you say it's more secure to store the data in one big database, or is it more secure to have it on the devices of people? Because for a hacker, it probably makes a difference whether he has to hack into a device or a central database, which has its own security and protection.
Sorry, can you repeat the very beginning of what you said, because there was
yeah. Would you say that the risks are different, that the security issue regarding a central database and a decentralized database, which is on every device in the network, which one would you say that is more secure from your point of view, based on your expertise in the field?
It's very hard to say. It's very, very hard to say, because it depends on the use the hacker could do with the data. If you collect all the information related to a country, all the information related of all your contacts, for example, it could be very damaging. It depends of the scenario. In fact, the data and the scenario of the hacking could be very different. So very hard to say which is the most protective and which would lead to a big damage or not.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, I understand that it's a difficult question to evaluate. I think personally that we have reached the point of no return as to which model we will implement in Europe, because apparently the decentralized model has gained a lot of ground. The Google, Apple model of decentralized contact tracing. Would you say that in the near future we'll see a federation-like cooperation between those countries that have implemented this protocol, Google, Apple, or a broader one of also different protocols, because there are different decentralized protocols. For example, I may be mistaken here, DTP3. Yeah.
It was hard to DP3T for decentralized privacy preserving proximity tracing. I have to read it every time.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is the name of the protocol, which is which could be used for the data process, but the one which is developed by Google and Apple is EN exposure notification for exposure notification. In fact, the thing is that Google and Apple had the technology and have all the experience to treat and to process with the data. So maybe there will be a way to protect the privacy and to work with them, because for this case, it seems that they are providing solutions that could preserve privacy. We know that Google in the past has been and is still very intrusive related to privacy, but I think that European country can ask to experts to guarantee that the solution that could be developed with Google and Apple are privacy compliant, and they protect the private information of their user. If the only way to work with such company as Google and Apple. Anyway, I think those companies can decide to work that way also, because they still collect a lot of information, a lot of data from people without needing that kind of application. And in this particular field, we still have the question of the medical secrecy, the medical information, who present a certain level, an higher level of protection. So it could be very dangerous for those companies to risk a scandal like Facebook faced in the Analytica court case. So from my point of view, it's possible to develop some synergy with them, and maybe with some success because of their experience and the competence in this field. But it has to be done very carefully.
From a legal point of view, who should be responsible for inspecting and supervising the operating of this decentralized system? Because apparently we cannot just trust blindly these corporations that are famous for selling and using our data for their own purposes. So who should be responsible within the European Union?
The European data authorities, a group of experts that could be, because I think we need a person with experience in the law area, but also which is very, very important, engineer, IT, architect, people with a strong technical skill who can verify how concretely the protocols are working together. Because it's very easy to pretend to do something, but if you are not the capacity to verify by yourself, in fact, you are buying a cat in the bag. You don't know anything about how it works. That's why we need for that kind of analysis, a strong team with law, with IT guy that work together to check how it works completely. And they have to access the data, they have to access to the servers, they have to access to the protocol, they have to access to everything to check how it works.
Do you know about current efforts on a European level to establish such a task force that combines both legal experts within the area of GDPR and tech experts?
Yeah, I've read that they are currently gathering a team of such expert, but I don't know more than that. And after this team gonna check the code and everything related to that, but I don't know more.
Who is building this coalition? Is it the European Data Protection Supervisor?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Great. So there are current efforts to establish such a system that will verify the operating of this contact tracing apps based on this model. So there, you believe that it shouldn't be a trade-off between data privacy and effective contact tracing. So we can reach an effective contact tracing, automatic contact tracing system without jeopardizing our data protection.
No, I think there will be always a risk. If you start tracing, there will always be a risk. And there is some kind of abuse that could be done in any situation. For example, if you want to ruin a competitor, you can use the application and false information related to an infection to give those data to a competitor. You want to stop the activity of a restaurant, and you fake a COVID situation in that restaurant, and after the restaurant maybe is closed, maybe you're gonna notify all the clients that one client 2 days before you was sick, and now the restaurant should be closed for that sanitary reason. And there is many scenario that could be possible, including some kind of fake bioterrorism, you know. There is a French report, I don't remember the name exactly, who details a lot of possibility, a lot of abuse related to COVID tracing. So from my point of view, those kind of situations should be think very carefully, because there will be always a trade with the privacy. But maybe it could be useful if the pandemic is growing again and again and again, and it's very difficult for people to travel and work across European country. Maybe the only solution will be to accept this privacy diminishing. But for the moment, I'm not sure that it's working, especially if I see the situation in France, because in Belgium I don't have many information about the COVID problem. We don't know. We know that the cases are increasing, but we don't know how it's working with the data and how it works with the medical staff who's supposed to contact with the data center to say, okay, there is somebody who's sick, maybe you have to contact it to check the situation, and then you have to contact the person, he or her, and had met in the past. But in France, I've seen that only 4% of the population downloads the application. France is a centralized model, but 4% is not enough to ensure that the COVID tracing could have any benefit for the population. The rate, the percentage of the population that should be concerned on the application to make it work, it's around 50 or 60%, which is huge. So if the other problem is to trust the system, because if you don't have the trust in the system, there will be not enough people who will download the application, and then the whole system will fail. So it's very important right now to think about solution, about thinking how to control and how to protect the privacy. But I think that the European country will need more than just the application and just decentralized method to make it work.
So we need a hybrid system of manual tracing through call centers, you say, and an automatic contact tracing through apps.
Manual, I don't know. I don't think it's a better solution because it involves a lot of other people who can also represent a breach in your data. So from my point of view, the manual tracing, like it is in Belgium, present a lot of other problem that the application doesn't have. So
exactly, yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's about trust, and that's why also the decentralized model has prevailed in Europe, because people should know that their own data is on their device and not shared with anybody, with any authority, with any no central authority. But how do we build or how do we expand this trust? Because in order for contact tracing through apps to work, you need at least half of the population downloading this app and registering, and actively, when they're diagnosed, actively informing the app. How do we build that trust so the system can work?
first, to build the trust, the decentralized model should be the rules. After, education is the key. We have to explain to people how it works, what are the data which are collected, and how is the matches are made in your mobile application. After, the people will have a real consentment, not to this mobile solution, this application solution. But if you don't explain, if you don't do this effort to make it clear for everybody, the first reaction is to say no, I think.
Yeah, a recent poll I read shows that 37% of Belgians say they would be willing to install the app. So that's comparatively, relatively good percentage of the population in comparison to other countries where the numbers vary between 10 and 20%. What would you say is the reason behind this trust in Belgium?
I don't know. I think it's better to verify in real life when it happens than to provide a number right now, because if it's based on un sondage, I don't know the English for that. I don't even trust that kind of information to this point, because it's very difficult to say how people will react in the scenario. For the moment, everybody say we are concerned by the virus, but there is a lot of party, a lot of people breaking the rule of social distancing and so on. Maybe to prevent the spread of the virus, it's better to invest in education and to explain to people how with the mask and how with the distanciation they can protect themselves and they can protect the other. Maybe it's better to invest in this kind of education than to invest in a complex architecture of decentralized server that nobody will download because most of them won't understand how it works. But it depends on the country, of course.
Actually, what is the Belgian experience right now? There are plans to launch the app in one of the regions in September.
Currently, what is working is the call center. The medical staff in contact with somebody who has been infected should ask the permission to phone to the call center explaining the situation, and then the call center is starting the action. Maybe if there is no major risk, as we say to the person to stay at home, and they will contact all the person, the infected people met. If there is no answer, they can send somebody at home to check what's the situation exactly. But there is also central database that gather all the information from the medical staff in Belgium. So it's manual centralized system in Belgium, which is a little bit different than the other country, which use application, centralized or not, but it's always an application.
Which would make it also harder to operate or to cooperate with other countries as to contact tracing?
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Is it possible to adjust the system towards federation, as we mentioned, of states that want to implement a decentralized system?
It's possible, but I think there will be problem related to interoperability because I don't think that the call center could provide manual services to people from another country. It's possible. Everything is possible if you have the money to create the architecture and the people to hire if needed. But it's always a question of money and people behind the system. So
Money and expertise, basically.
money, expertise, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that we have both right now in Europe, that all the European countries can cope with that challenge?
I think so, yes. If we want, we can. I'm sure of it. But the question is to gather the good team and to identify the people with expertise to do so. And maybe
Absolutely.
this is not the most famous or the most well-known people that should prove that they are the most experienced people in this area.
All right. And the last, maybe kind of off-topic question: how did COVID-19 influence your business? Because you have a firm that is combining law and IT. So how would you say it's affected? It changed the environment of for business.
Yes, yes, it changed. On one hand, it's worse because it's very hard to go to the tribunal. The relation with the judge are very complicated, and for the court case, it induces a long term, long time that could be lost in the procedure. There was a lot of arriérés in Belgium, meaning that very long to have a court fight processing into the system. And now it's even worse because of the coronavirus. But on the other hand, as my law firm is specialized on online business, e-commerce, I've seen more demand from clients in this situation to help them to configure e-commerce solution, the legal part of their business, and also for legal design, because it's a nice way to present the obligation and all the law problem related to an activity online. And it's more convenient for their clients and our clients also.
Yes. So new realities, new challenges arise after this crisis. Yeah.
Indeed. We have to be. We have to adapt all the time.
Adapt always. Yeah.
And I think good advice for young generation like yours, because the law field is about to change dramatically in the next, let's say, 2 or 3 years. And if you present a lot of different skills, like you probably do in coding, in data, in privacy, you will have more experience in the law area.
So you would advise young lawyers to also get familiar with the world of technology,
Yeah, of course.
data science, coding.
Yes. Artificial intelligence. You don't need to learn to code, but you need to understand how it works. Maybe read a little code, know the difference between Python and HTML, for example, and where is it better to use this language than another? Because tomorrow your client can say something to you if you cannot check in the code, if you cannot check on a server, you have to believe it. And lawyer need proof, not beliefs.
Exactly. In order to verify if your client is compliant with the laws, you have to understand what he's doing. That makes absolutely sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let me quickly summarize what we discussed so far, and I'll let you go. So we established that the decentralized model of contact tracing apps has become prevalent in European societies, mainly because of the trust of people, of the population, that their data will be stored locally on their devices rather than on a central database supervised by an authority. And that's their current efforts on a European level to first create an area, a region where all the contact tracing apps in the different countries would be compatible with each other, would interact with each other. So an Austrian or a German can go to Belgium and move securely and safely and know that if somebody gets infected and diagnosed and he was in contact with, he will be immediately notified and he will know for sure that he may be potentially infected too. So, and there are also efforts on a European level to create a task force that combines both expertises in the legal area and in the tech area to effectively verify the operation of this contact tracing model that Google and Apple offer as a solution to the crisis. And yes, for sure, if the crisis goes on, we will probably learn to live with those kinds of technological solutions and just accept that there might be slight risk of compromising our data. But when isn't there a risk? I mean, we store our own data all the time on our devices, what we do on the internet, on Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think these were the main points that we addressed. Thank you very much for this thoughtful conversation. I really hope that we gave some valuable insight for our audience. Thank you very much, Mr. Vigneron.
Thank you.
And all the best.